Welcome to Bold Talk series, where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Ryan Deiss, founder and CEO at the Scalable company. Ryan, great to see you. Welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
I'm great, Epi. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Ryan, I was looking at your profile and reading a little bit about you, and it was really impressive things you've been doing. But also, I was really impressed about like how honest you were from the beginning of this journey. And I'd like to start the conversation from here, where you can take us back to that pivotal moment when your wife said, "You can keep doing what you're doing, but you can't pretend it's for us anymore." What shifted in you that night, and how did it fundamentally reshape how you approach business and life?
For me, it was a shift back to my original why for why I started my business in the first place. And I think that's the case for most entrepreneurs, most business owners. We started our business because we wanted more. We wanted more for ourselves, wanted more for our family, wanted more of an impact. But I think for a lot of us, the businesses that we start shift from being kind of the means to the end to sort of being the end. They start to envelop us and envelop our lives. And that was certainly the case for me. I mean, I started my first company from my college dorm room because I met a girl and I decided that this was the woman that I was going to marry. And so I needed to make some more money. And fast forward, 15 years, the business worked and I got I got the ring and I got the girl and I have this big business and we've got these kids. But now this successful business, which was supposed to be the thing that was to provide for this family, had become the thing that was taking me away from my family. I was getting up and I was going to the office before anybody was awake. I was getting home after everybody was asleep. And yeah, it took my wife holding a mirror up in front of my face saying, was this the plan? Is this why we were doing everything? And I'm thankful that she did, because she called me on my why. And that completely changed the trajectory of my life. It redefined what success meant to me. And that was back in 2016. I mean, that year I had 3 companies on the Inc. 500 list. 3 companies. I looked really successful, except I was burnt out and I was miserable. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of business owners are.
Yeah, truly, thank you for sharing this, because these are true struggles. A lot of entrepreneurs they go, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs there also. They don't have also someone else to share this, and your person next to, which is your spouse, is the one who can truly tell you exactly how things are if you just have a listening heart, right? And so I am one of those examples too. And as soon as I was I was I was able to acknowledge that first, what she was telling me, that truly changed everything for me. And I'm so grateful that, God puts our spouses to be one in one unity in great shapes. Thank you for sharing that. Ryan, you scaled 3 companies into the Inc. 500 list and then watched 2 of them collapse. What did you learn from building things fast that ultimately didn't last, and how did those failures inform the architecture of a scalable operating system?
Well, what I learned is that growth doesn't solve all your problems. And I think as business owners, we are kind of brought up that that's what we think, is that more growth will solve everything. If I can just sell my way through it. And the hard thing about that is, in the early days, that's absolutely the right thing. I mean, from basically 0 to $1 million in revenue, growth is all you need. You just need to go and make more sales. But there becomes a time in the life of the business where that is no longer true. When your business is held together with duct tape and bubblegum and hope, going faster is only going to cause it to fall apart. And of those 3 businesses, funny enough, the one that had grown the fastest, it went from, the first year 0 to $500,000, then to 3 million, and then all the way up to 30 million. That was the business that crashed and burned the fastest. I mean, I remember just literally, a couple weeks before Christmas having to go in and fire over 80 people, lay off over 80 people, simply because we weren't going to be able to make payroll. And that was awful. That was miserable. But it was because, Icarus flying too close to the sun. And I see this happen with a lot of business owners, because if you don't have the right systems in place, more growth, more sales are not going to save you. If you don't have good margins, if you don't have these things figured out, it's not just about growth. And it's not just me. I mean, Inc. magazine, who publishes this list, they actually did a study. And they found that after 5 to 8 years, 67% of Inc. 500 and 5,000 businesses fail, or they're sold disadvantageously, or they're smaller than they were. So this is nothing new. They actually fail at a faster rate than normal, ordinary businesses. So at some point, business owners have to realize, entrepreneurs have to realize, that it's not about growth. You actually have to kind of pause the growth engine just a little bit to implement the systems so that the business can grow beyond you, because all CEOs, all founders do become the limiting force and factor in their business. And if you don't realize that at some point, the business is going to crumble around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Now, what was that first system you built, not for the business, but for yourself, that truly gave you back your time? And what did that unlock for you as a leader?
Well, funny enough, the simplest system that I built was the agreement that I made with my wife that night that we had that conversation. That was just a decision to be home for dinner every night. And I do think that to a certain extent, just the limits and the constraints that we put in place are of themselves tiny little micro systems that can make a difference. But I'll tell you kind of a more complex and maybe a more helpful one that I'll advice that I'll give to everybody. The advice that we're given as business owners is to, make a list of everything that you're doing right now and draw a line, and sort of anything below what you perceive as, beneath kind of your hourly rate, delegate all of that. And it sounds good. The problem is what we wind up doing is we wind up delegating a lot of low leverage work that's frankly not that hard and that we're pretty good at for a new job called management that most of us aren't very good at. And so one of the first things that I did is, and I don't know where I got this idea, who taught it to me. I'm not going to claim to invent it, but I created a matrix and I called it the impactability matrix. And so I basically put, on the vertical axis, impact. So high impact, low impact, and then on the horizontal, ability. So high impact, high ability, low ability. And I plotted all the things that I were doing on this matrix. And again, what everybody wants to delegate are kind of those low impact, low ability, like all the low impact things. What you actually want to delegate first are the high impact, low ability. Delegate the high impact things first. They're the ones that we're scared to delegate because they're kind of a big deal. But if you'll delegate those first, you're going to get the biggest gains. They're going to have the fastest ROI. For me, what it actually was client fulfillment. I was staying in the weeds of client fulfillment. And because I was in the weeds of client fulfillment, I wasn't able to focus on sales. I wasn't able to focus on growth. And I was actually not doing as good a job because I was too close to it. And so other people, when they were doing client fulfillment, believe it or not, they were doing a better job than me. So that was the first thing that got me out of the weeds and out of the day to day. But I would just tell everybody right now, do that impact ability assessment and start delegating based on impact, not merely the things that, you don't, the low impact stuff.
Yeah, I usually do my rating like a high probability, a low probability, but I really love this because this also gives an opportunity also in terms of the um where is that those time that you're spending that you no longer need to spend that time. You can just hire someone, like you said, for the hourly paid. What is your rate? So I think that's a really great methodology. Now, Ryan, the idea of taking 30-day vacation while your business grows in your absence sounds like a dream for most entrepreneurs. A lot of entrepreneurs, they work in the business, but they not work off the business. So the business, like I heard one guy said to me, if you can take a 30 days or 6 days from your vacation, you got yourself an expensive job. So what are the hardest internal or psychological blocks founders most overcome to make the leap, thinking that you can have a business that with operation that you can take as many days off as you want?
Yeah, I will say, first of all, I completely agree with whoever told you that. If you can't take 30 days, if you can't leave your business for 30 days, I'm sorry, you don't have a business, you have a job. It's just as simple as that. As business owners, it could be a great job. You could have a lot of control, but it is still a high paid, high status job. We need to be able to leave these things, or we don't own our businesses own us. It's as simple as that. And so I basically made two agreements with my wife that night. The first is that I would make it home for dinner. I would leave the office in time to do that. And the second is that we would start going on extended family vacations. We didn't have to know where we were going to go, but we were going to start taking time off as a family. And what that forced me to do, that was the forcing function that required me to build the operating system that would allow the company to run without me, because I was able to announce to the team, hey, everybody, I'm going to be gone for 30 days. And so we got to figure out right now, what are the things that are going to break while I'm gone? And just that forcing function if you'll announce, if you'll just tell your team, you don't have to know where you're going to go. You can even decide last minute, never mind, I'm not going to go. But if you will just announce to your team that you're going to be gone for 30 days, just that will open up so much about your business and where the different constraints and where the holes are that you can begin plugging. But I'll tell you, I mean, to answer your question, what are the hardest internal psychological blocks? It's actually less about trust, because we actually worked with a lot of business owners to put the operating system in place so that they can leave. All too often, they still don't want to. And so what I find with business owners is actually less about trust with their team, because they have it more than you think they do. It's actually more about identity. So many business owners want to believe that they're essential. And so it really is about breaking that aspect of the identity that you're not essential to your business, and about trying to reframe it. And so what we say to our clients and to our portfolio companies, and I try to beat it into their brains, the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. And if you can believe that, and if you can internalize that, that it's not about me being valuable to my business, it's actually the goal is to become less valuable so my business can become more valuable. If we can get them to believe that, they'll take a vacation. If they have to continue to be the most valuable player in their business, then that's the hardest thing about getting them to take that vacation.
Yeah. So it's a psychological, and sometimes it can go for decades, for some business owners. They can go on like that and not really knowing exactly what is the problem, and the problem is that psychological block.
Yeah.
How can you help someone, like you said, like, you made that decision with your wife to have that dinner every single night in a calendar, no matter what. So that's the one, because sometimes when we start thinking about this very complicated system, right? Like, how would you help someone, like, just saying, like, hey, here's the first baby step that you can take?
I'll tell you, it's really hard. And so I'll answer your question, but it's hard to help somebody until they've reached a breaking point. I've had so many conversations with business owners where they've come to me and said, I think I want to sell my business. Or they've even come to me and said, I think I just want to shut the whole thing down. And I'll listen to them for a while, but the first question I always ask them is, hey, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you took a vacation? And invariably, Epi, the first question is, the answer I get is like, I don't remember, or "Ugh, I haven't taken one in years." And so if I can just get them to take a little vacation. And so that's all I'm ever trying to get them to do. So let's not take 30 days. Okay. Can you just take an extended weekend? Can you take Friday and then the next Monday? And I mean, truly take it off. Like, can we just do that? And the
Mm,
little baby step that I want them to take is just to send that email to their team saying that they're going to do it. Just send this email to your leadership team saying, hey, everybody, I'm going to be taking this time off. I want to make sure that you're fully empowered to do that. I want to make sure that you're set up. Please reply with what you need from me so that you're going to be able to be successful while you're gone, and that ideally you're not going to have to hit me up while I'm gone.
yeah.
And if I can get them to send that one email, that's the forcing function that they need, because what they get to see from their team is their team's like, oh, that's great. We're so glad that you're doing that. And no, we got it. Or, yeah, you know what? If you could send this and this and this over, that would be amazing. And they get to see with their own eyes that it can be done. And if I can get them to take at least a week off, the change that they start to experience while they're gone, they have so many ideas
Yeah.
that they actually do work in their head while they're gone, and they come back refreshed. It's like, okay. And they fall in love with their business all over again. And here's the cool thing, man. Most of the time when I leave, my people get more work done when I'm gone than they do when I'm there, because I leave them alone, right? And so it just starts this new process of them falling in love, not just with their business again, but falling in love with the role again.
Yeah. Yeah, they get to know, they understand that you're not there anymore for whatever the time, and now it's time for us to work as a team to make things to make things happen, right? And so that step, it's super important. I know I did that before with my team, and it helped me a lot. I don't call myself that I take vacation extensively, but I do take my breaks, and they truly help a lot. And when I'm in my breaks, I'm reading, and I'm growing mentally, physically, spiritually, ideas, and I come back so refreshed. It's amazing. So this is truly needed for everyone. If you want to play hard, you got to also, take your time and get yourself refreshed. Now,
Rest
Ryan,
is work. Yeah,
yeah,
rest is work. You're right.
yeah. And so that's super important. Now, Ryan, you inside your 200 million holding company, you're scaling multiple businesses simultaneously. What does your personal daily operation rhythm look like to manage that scope without slipping back into old habits or going through cracks? I'm sure there's things come unexpected. Give us your what does that look like?
Sure. For me, every Sunday, I ask myself, what are the three things that I specifically need to get done this week to feel like I'm making progress towards kind of my big quarterly initiatives, and they go in my calendar. So I'm actually going to schedule those in my calendar, and then at the end of every day I'm going to just reassess the calendar and make sure that I'm doing those. Now all of this assumes that I have some type of quarterly initiatives and that those quarterly initiatives are aligned with what my companies are doing. So from a broad perspective, what we do as a company is we set 3-year targets. So we're going to set, I don't believe in like big 10-year, like big, hairy, audacious goals and stuff like that for entrepreneurial companies. It's just too dang long. We also don't do annual planning. That's too short. So we set 3-year targets, revenue and profitability. We then break that up into quarterly sprints. So we're going to break that up into 12 quarterly chunks. And so every single quarter, we're going to say these are the 3 key metrics that we're going to look to optimize this quarter. These are the 5 key initiatives, the 5 big projects that we're going to execute as a team to move those 3 North Star metrics. And then this is kind of the one big theme or rallying cry. So it's out of those 5 key initiatives that I'm kind of going to get my marching orders, just like everybody else in the team does. And so it's out of those that I'm going to know, okay, this quarter, here's my focus. And then that then trickles down to the week, which trickles down to the day. Then the teams all have weekly scorecard check-ins just to see how we're doing, monthly pivots. But at the end of the day, the main question that I'm asking myself is just, what's my company's biggest constraint right now? And then are we allocating the necessary resources to unblock that constraint? I think that's the number one question that every CEO should be asking. And if you know your company's biggest constraint, and if you're allocating all available resources to that constraint, then you're doing your job. What I just laid out should be facilitating that. That rhythm should be facilitating that. But my daily rhythm is just still constantly asking that question. What I'm working on today, is that doing it? What my team is working on, is that doing that? Because if we're just unblocking constraints, then we should be growing, we should be scaling.
Yeah. And that also keeps you very well aligned and your team as well. And today, when I see with a lot of companies, there's also so much assignment, so much tasks being done. But when it comes to alignment, that's really a big question mark. Any tools that you use for such a team dynamics, something like this? Do you use any of the tools or?
We keep it simple. So when it comes to our scorecards, I'm a big believer in manual scorecards. So we use Google Sheets. Now I get it. There's like fancy business intelligence tools, but I'm a big believer in having metrics that we track them on a weekly basis. And so if you own a particular metric or KPI at the company, every Monday, whoever owns that metric, they're going to come in and they're going to report on that metric. They're going to enter that number manually. Then they're going to compare what that number is this week to what the target should be. And then they're going to manually select a status: red, yellow, green. Green, we're on track or ahead. Yellow, we're behind, but we have a plan to catch up. Red is we're behind and we don't know how to catch up. And everybody says, oh, but doesn't this take a lot of time? Isn't this really inefficient? Nope. Something magical happens when people manually report on their metrics. They know their numbers and they also own their numbers. So we're big believers in manual spreadsheets. And same for me personally. I keep a physical planner. And so every day I write down what my big 3 is for that day. I manually check it off. And then also I have a Google Calendar. And so I make sure that whatever the things that I'm going to get done that day, that it is scheduled into my calendar. If it's not written in my planner, scheduled into my calendar, it's not going to get done. Almost every tool that we use is manual by design. I think automation, more times than not, equals forgotten.
Yeah. Interesting. I also do my affirmation. I write them down every single day. Spend a good half an hour to 45 minutes just going through the whole cycles of the goals, short term, daily targets, and so on. And I can tell there's something magical happens when you write. It's really amazing. Now, Ryan, I'm truly enjoying this conversation. Thank you for joining me in this Bold Talk series. We'd love to have another great conversation, more longer format. I always ask this last question to my guests about the word bold. What does that mean to you personally?
Bold means being willing to step out and do those things in spite of fear, because I do believe that we are always confronting and running up against our own discomfort, but there's never been anything that I've ever accomplished that I've been proud of that I wasn't a little bit afraid to do ahead of time. And so I feel like if I can act boldly, whether it's making bold decisions, setting bold goals, or taking bold actions, usually that means there's a little bit of fear attached. And if there's a little bit of fear attached, if there's a little bit of difficulty attached, to me, that's a sign that I'm probably doing the right thing.
Ryan, great having you here. Thank you for joining me in this Bold Talk series. Looking forward to see you next time. Until that time, take care, be great, and be bold always. Bye bye.
Epi, thanks so much.
Thank you.